All right, what's going on, fellas? Welcome to Large Lads 4, where me, Max, and Kirsten sit down and answer you guys' questions from the community poll. Max has decided that we're going to start this one off with a banana eating race. Kirsten forgot that we were racing and started eating her banana already. But we're going to see who wins, and then we're going to answer your questions. 3, 2, 1, go. Yeah! Let's go! Number 1!
I beat you.
Fuck. I should have seen that coming. Alright. Give me a banana peel. Max, bring up the first question. I'll go talk. Please.
Alright. As brothers, do you ever use each other as sort of trial and error experiment to test new training elements? We'll include Kirsten on this.
Well, you guys can't trial anything on anybody else because I write the programs.
If something's going well for me, I'll tell Sam or Kirsten to try it out in their own training. So I think if any of us find something. So in terms of training preparation, Sam's big on broccoli slaw, just because it's the easy way to get your vegetables in. And I added that in, and it's been awesome. Huge benefit for me. I think I've kind of reached a level of strength where Sam can't just try brand new training concepts. But absolutely, I think we're constantly bouncing ideas off each other.
Yeah, so I mean, if anybody's the guinea pig, it would be me, because I like tinkering with stuff, with my diet, with my training, with my warm-ups, and if I start seeing success with something, then I'll start rolling it out to people that I coach, such as Kirsten and Max. But it's not as though I'm giving people things that I haven't tried myself very often. Earlier in Max's training career, I would have a hunch of something that might work, and we would just give it a go, and if it was working well for him, I might give it a go too. But unfortunately, Max is strong enough now that if I write down something stupid, he could hurt himself badly. So I have to be a little bit more conservative with not being quite as experimental in what we're doing. It's if I'm going to give Max something, I give it a trial run first to make sure I don't write something down and Max cripples himself. Next question.
With the quantity of food you both need to consume, are you both large-scale food prep? If so, any staple recipes and meals you can gift us with?
We're all eating the same thing right now.
Yeah, I cook a 10-pound beef tube twice a week, so apparently going through about 20 pounds of 93.7 beef. And that's with rice and broccoli slaw. And that's kind of every meal, plus some eggs and fruit.
Max cooks 10 pounds of beef at a time in a big wok. So that could be a potential takeaway, is if you're trying to mass cook ground beef. Or even if you cut it up, you could cook beef in the wok, but you can cook a shit ton of meat in a wok at once. That's how Max does it. I've kind of bounced back and forth between cooking mine in a pan or taking my ground beef, making it into a bunch of handmade burger patties, or really big burger patties, putting it out on the grill. That way I don't have to add any fat. But for the most part, most of our meals look the same. Max preps probably about 3 to 4 days of food at a time. I prep 1 day of food at the time. Kirsten makes about 2 or 3 meals per cooking.
Yeah, and I was cooking chicken, and I just switched to beef like them. But I was using Foad's chicken recipe from the Real Bodybuilding podcast, and since I had to cook less food than them, I just put it in the air fryer. So it was really fast. It took me a half hour to prep for 2 days.
So outside of that video I made called eating muscle man tips, or whatever the hell I called it, where I kind of broke down my diet of just okay, we get predominantly our carbs from rice. We run up some amount of broccoli slaw for veggie is how I do it, but whatever veggie of choice, protein sources. And I had the whole whiteboard. That kind of breaks down everything as far as how I would make a diet. As far as recipes that we could share, I'll probably have Kirsten make a video on the channel because she's a lot more picky than Max and I in terms of the food actually tasting good. Max and I have been eating so much bland food for so long that it's more trouble than it's worth to make it taste good if we're just gonna have to force feed it down half the time anyway. So not good at cooking at all, just good enough to not get food poisoning, whereas Kirsten needs it to taste good to eat it. So she's had to learn how to make the standard mass gaining or standard training support meals, but the same thing, but actually somewhat tasty. So we'll probably share some of the various recipes she's come to on the channel. And also, Kirsten's not a good cook.
And
so
I'm lazy.
She's
so
lazy and
hard.
not a good cook. So you guys should be able to duplicate these. Because I always hated when I saw like, oh, this macro-friendly meal, how to make it taste good. And it was like some guy who actually knows how to cook, doing all of these actually know how to cook things. I was like, I don't know how to fucking cook. I know how to use a microwave and maybe a stovetop. And I would just like it to like taste passable. And I'm assuming many of you are in that same boat. Next question, go.
When are you going to learn to cook food like a decent human being?
Is that actually a question?
Yes.
What the hell? Never.
I'll throw on some more bulking meals from early Lars Lad Max. I'd get a bowl and I'd fill it up with goldfish, and then I'd put 2 cans of tuna on and I'd mash it up and I'd eat that. Or I'd get a salad bowl of cereal so the protein from the milk would count. What else would I do? I do 2 things of ramen, and then I'd crack 8 eggs in it, just cook it all together, and I'd down that. Those are 3 bulking meals for you. So if you,
Max has eaten,
I already know how to cook like a decent human being.
Max has eaten a lot of egg ramen in his life.
And ice cream.
As far as what I'm gonna learn, never. It's not worth it. Even twisting the pepper grinder is too much work to make my meals. We're not going past that.
Is it okay if I feel tension on my chest doing a close grip bench, or am I fucked up?
That is super normal and a-okay. If you think about it, you're getting your elbows actually deeper relative to your sternum, so in some ways it's more taxing on the chest. If we touch lower, we can kind of divert that more to the shoulder. If we touch higher, that's going to be very demanding on the chest. Not a problem at all.
Do you think you both have above average strength genetics, or are your feats possible for a large group of people?
I would say that we certainly have above average. I think it would be pretty delusional to say that it's not like, no, 50th percentile, dead average, just work harder. I think that would be kind of silly. I've mentioned a couple times, and for some reason people want to push back on me, that I have met people that I felt had a greater propensity. They're like, no, you haven't. Yes, I have. I've coached them. Like, I watched their week-to-week progress. It was not like mine. So it's like, I don't know what percentile to throw myself in. I feel like there's a big selection bias. Like the people that stick with lifting are the ones that kind of had some success right off the bat. So even just the average lifter might not actually be the 50th percentile because there's a little selection bias there. So I'm certainly very comfortably going to put us in the upper echelons, though there are people further along that spectrum. That's a good question. Like, is what we have achieved achievable by a large scope of people? If they bulked to super heavyweight and took a bunch of drugs, I don't think I'm outside the striking range of someone maybe kind of close to that 50th percentile. If they just bloat max up to 350 and decided they didn't want to live past 50, I don't know if what we've achieved so far is completely outside of that, but within the realms of like what people realistically actually want to do, probably a bit past that level of accessible would be my trying to be reasonable guess.
I think people greatly underestimate what they're capable of with 10 years of good training. I hear that thrown around a lot, and I think a lot of people don't really even understand what that means. But also, I would say, I think all 3 of us probably have some amount of propensity more than normal to strength. And like, I am 6'1" and 300 pounds. Acting like that is completely average is also pretty insane.
With no sleep apnea, he can still run and jump really fast.
A comfortable 300
Yeah,
pounds.
Max
300 pounds is not impressive.
You ate your ramen.
I went to Walmart. I found 100 people guaranteed with great strength.
Everybody at Walmart has great genetics, baby.
Thoughts on Anderson squats?
Not my cup of tea. Those are bottom-up squats where you start them down on the pins, you get under the weight, you stand up with it. It's like a squat to pins, but without the negative.
Mike T liked those, right?
Mike T does squats to pins with the negative.
Oh, gotcha.
For the most part, that's my.
It seems insane to try and set up at the bottom.
The idea is that it's like you're creating. You don't have any stored mechanical tension from the bottom, and you have to be able to create that tightness. It's not really my cup of tea. I think a squat to pins is a very good variation where you could have this good standardized position, and you're going to get a lot of the same training effects. I think this idea that you have to get under a dead bench versus a low pin press is going to make it that much more stimulative. I don't necessarily agree. I don't think an Anderson squat is going to be that much greater than a squat with pins. If we do sit down to the pins, stay there for a second, we're not bouncing. Not my cup of tea. I don't really incorporate them much.
How did you reinforce the toilets in your house to withstand,
How? So far, so good. The house we got is brand new, so the toilets are strong. They're pretty non-issue so far. Knock on wood.
They're also probably not expensive toilets, so I don't know how much longer we have.
Do you guys have any future plans aside from strength goals you want to achieve and can share?
Nope.
I want to learn how to solve a Rubik's Cube once I'm done lifting weights.
Do you have any non-strength related goals in your life?
I want to care less about my job and more about lifting.
That's.
Oh wait, that is strength.
I also want to care less about my job. I'm close to maxing out.
That's related to my job.
I want to run a marathon. I'm really bad at running, so once I'm done with lifting, I'm going to run a marathon if I don't die. Ever thought about going full social media moron to pay the bills at one point? We're not jacked, so it's a lot harder to go full social media. You can't really hit the aesthetics bro crowd with this household.
No, it's not really been tempting to me because I feel
He's trying.
Yeah.
What do you think this is?
Yeah, that's the channel.
We ate bananas for 10 seconds.
Not really my cup of tea because training is very much like it's training to make you stronger, not expressing. So if I was doing some goober feat of strength for Instagram all the time, I think it's fun. At first that might be a little fun and interesting. Like, oh, I wonder what my max is on this. I wonder what my max is on this. Blah blah blah. People say, oh, that's so cool. But then when I'm not actually getting stronger for months at a time, like a lot of the people on social media will just post the exact same heavy deadlift over and over. It's always the same number, but it always gets some clicks. They're doing good, but it's always the same number. I would get a bit depressed. Do you want to go full social media goober?
No. Maybe someday. Maybe when I'm bigger.
When you're aesthetic?
Yeah. No, I'm never going to be aesthetic.
80-20 beef patty?
Yeah.
Any difference beside personal preference for using hack squat or a leg press as quad hypertrophy for a upright high bar squatter?
That's a great question. I think that if our goal is like pure quad stimulus, the hack squat's probably going to be the better option because we're going to be able to load like a more acute knee angle, if that makes sense, through a good resistance curve. If the goal is carryover, kind of depends on what mirrors your positions in the squat more, because one of the benefits to a leg press, if you have a good leg press and you could do a really good deep leg press, is that it strikes a balance between using your glutes and your adductors and your quads that can be pretty similar to when you're squatting, whereas a hack squat usually ends up being pretty underutilizing the posterior chain, which could be good from a bodybuilding perspective or if we're building up a weakness perspective, but at the same time, it's not exactly just extra squat volume at that point. Whereas a lot of it depends on how nice your leg press is if you can get into really good deep leg pressing positions, I think it's a phenomenal exercise, and if you can't, I'd pick the hack squat all day.
Yeah, I think you can really favor each of those exercises closer to your squat mechanic. You'll get like a lot more direct carryover. In a three-way sumo wrestling match, including both of you and one half-size Bill Kazmaier, who comes out on top? I don't know why Bill Kazmaier would be one half his size, because I'm the size of Bill Kazmaier at his heaviest, I think. So, I think we're for sure beating one half-sized Bill Kazmaier.
Yeah.
Me and Sam.
One full-size Bill Kazmaier might be a problem.
Definitely going to change.
The fact that you've given us a 160 pound Bill Kazmaier, I'm smoking that.
We're beating him to death.
He's fucked.
Between me and Sam, I think Sam would win.
I agree.
In a sumo wrestling match, yeah, for sure.
I agree. Well, I did beat you last time.
Mm-hmm. Best chicken wing flavoring for strength.
Go.
Garlic parm.
Go.
Fuck, my answer was also garlic parm.
Yeah.
Or chili Thai.
I'm going to go with either barbecue or vinegar flavor.
Ode says all.
I can't eat a bulk of barbecue wings. If I eat too many,
that's true of all wings. That's true of all wings.
I can eat 100 garlic parmesan.
They can be unflavored and it's going to feel like shit.
You, Sam, appear to be the more cerebral of the brothers. With all due respects to Max, Though, who are Max's biggest influences aside from you in training, theory, information, etc.?
So I'm glad that you guys see that Max is fucking dumb.
This was a YouTube nerd way of calling me dumb.
No, I'm the more cerebral one. We need to deal with it. I read this. That's funny because Max is a very smart guy and just doesn't put any effort into trying to sound smart, much to his detriment in life.
Fuck.
But I promise, like, you've got my word. Max is a lot smarter than he lets on. But as the more cerebral brothers, let me tell you, who are your training influences outside of like me?
If we're going technique, I really like Jonathan Keiko's pull right now. I think I've had to kind of reframe my deadlift the last couple years from like more of like a yank round upper back, and I think his pull has been really helpful. Sam, I don't even have. I guess I really like how Kirill's bench looks. It's like the big man best version bench, and like a lot of his training. In a squat, like Ray Williams, I watch a lot. And then in terms of like actual like training information, I like watching like a lot of like training logs. Like I keep up with SSJ Bop and I watch a lot of his videos. I think there's like a lot to be learned from someone progressing so fast and having like that winner of a mentality. A lot of like Prime Thor. A lot of his old videos are insanely motivational. Juggernaut, I still go back and watch a lot of, just because like a lot of the early videos and a lot of like Calgary barbell. I would say, are a lot of active training influences. I still love Pete Rubish's old videos, but I don't know if those are actually productive training influences. Kirsten.
John Meadows. I mostly watch bodybuilders right now, but that's because I'm trying to be better about my diet. So I think that's a good influence on me and training harder in my accessories.
I also think it's something Max and I talk about often, where there's almost like it's very separate things. There's having a good athlete's IQ and having a good coaching IQ, right? A good coaching IQ is being able to observe what's working for someone else and like be flexible with your methods to find a bunch of different systems for a bunch of different athletes. And there's people with a very high coaching IQ that have a very low athlete's IQ. They do a very bad job with their own training, right? And then you could have someone who's, let's say, a very good athlete, and they're very in tune with their body. They know what they need to do on any given training session to get their technique fixed up. If they're feeling a certain way, they know how to interpret that, how to get better. There's a very real form of intelligence there, but if you let them coach other people, they're trash because they're just going to give exactly what worked for them because that's what they have a great understanding of. That's where their IQ is really high, is what is training for that person. They're going to give that vanilla to everybody else. Max does not exactly have a very high coach's IQ.
I was gonna say, if we're talking cerebral in terms of like programming knowledge and like application to like larger groups of people, yeah, for sure. Sam is drastically more informed and smarter when it comes to that. I am not a very good coach. I have a hard time investing in other people's training. But I think I spend a lot of time thinking about my own training.
Yeah, so that's the part that I think would be like worth mentioning, right? Because it's like Max is very cerebral about his own training. Like he's doing drills in his room all day, practicing his deadlift setup, and it's like there's clearly a lot of thought going into it, but it's just about it's narcissism. Because he's watching his videos all day and drilling.
You're narcissistic, but you look like me too.
Can't invest in other people's training, but I invest in my own, baby. But yeah, I think that's a lot of the time people go, oh yeah, good athletes are idiots, like look, they can't coach other people, they're just freaks. Yes, they're freaks, but also they might have a very high athlete's IQ. They might have a very good feel for what they need to do at a given time. No disrespect to the guy, but I don't think Hathor would be the greatest coach of a bunch of like genetically average people. But I do suspect that Hathor at his prime was functioning with a pretty high athlete's IQ of when he needed to push, when he needed to pull back, what he needed to work on to coax out the response we want. Because even if he is a genetic freak, his getting close to his body really stopping him from getting stronger. Yeah, it's numerically higher than ours, but he was still very goddamn close to it. And he was still able to coax out a little bit of adaptation at a time. Next question. Get him, Moody.
If you had to eat at the same restaurant for every meal for the rest of your life, what would you pick and why?
Kirsten, go.
Oh, I'm stealing your answer.
Oh, no, you have to pick something else.
Oh, shit. Okay, then you guys go first.
Okay, Max, go.
I think Chipotle, because I could just get steak and rice, but it's going to taste slightly better, and it's roughly within the realm of like cheaper foods, I guess, and I have more options like nationwide.
I didn't even think about the nationwide thing. All right, so my pick would be, there's a restaurant in town that's like a nice Asian food place called Wasabi, and I would just get their beef teriyaki over and over because it's more or less what I'd be eating anyway. It's a nicer place, so the ingredients are decent quality. It's not just like really, really bad beef like you might get at some teriyaki places, because that was my instant thought. If I'm eating at one place for life, I'm just picking a teriyaki place because it's basically what I'm eating anyway. They put some like coleslaw on the side. They've got some like beef or chicken. You can rotate between the two, and some rice. So I'm like, wow, that's not much of a deviation. I'd like to get the better stuff though, but if we had to go with a chain, probably Chipotle. I don't know. I feel like I'm missing a good.
You got on, Kirsten.
Answer.
All right, fine. Fuck you.
Just say Qdoba.
Now I'd be stealing that. Subway, Jersey Mike's. I'm eating Jersey Mike's every day. Jersey Mike's every day. All right, Kirsten. You can pick one local, one chain, or just one chain.
There's a place here called Seven Sushi, and they have also teriyaki. It's really good.
I see, unlike Max, you are not factoring in the price at all.
No, I'm not. This is an ideal world, so I would eat there or chain, probably Chick-fil-A, in the interest of trying to be unique.
Let's go.
Oh, very unique. Super unique.
From you guys.
No other white woman would ever pick Chick-fil-A as the only place they could eat. Wow, very unique.
Listen, I would say Chipotle if I could, but Max already stole it.
All right, absolute shitter question.
Let's go. Thank you, Noah. This is where the shitter questions go. This is not for really in-depth ones.
If there was an alternate reality where you were both super heavyweight, bloat-maxed multiply lifters, so if I put on a suit,
Yeah, sure.
I'm already so close. Who would squat 1K first? Who would bench 1K? And who would have the worst deadlift?
Well, presumably I would have the worst deadlift. I don't think that's really up for debate. Presumably I would bench 1,000 first. Max already squats with a wide stance. I think I would have a pretty rough time making that that switch. So unfortunately, I'm pretty sure Max would beat me to the 1K squat. If hypothetically I just teleported to being a 400-pound man, though, I think me being shorter than Max, we do some good old prime West Side depth standards. I think I might have been able to beat him to it just by being the older brother.
Put me in the West Side era, and I'm absolutely killing it. I think I'm absolutely dominating. All right. What are your next goals as large lads? Kirsten, you start.
As a large lad.
Like in training?
Yes, sure.
I'm coming up on a 200 bench, so that's my next goal.
Yeah, straight to 225.
2 plates! Because I'm closer to a 315 deadlift, but I think I'm coming on a 200 bench pretty fast. So.
Let's go. Yeah, that's good. What are your goals as a large fella?
I want to hit 150 kilo body weight, so 330 pounds. That's definitely a large lad goal. I want to deadlift 815 on the stiff bar. I want to squat 770, and I gotta get that 500 bench at some point. Slowly chipping away.
My goals, starting to think about would be, I want to pull 835 soon-ish if things keep going well. So 835 pull would be nice. I would like to put up a 700 plus high bar squat and then just keep going with the high bar for the time being because it's nice and consistent. Doesn't require me to do any real mobility anymore. Maybe get at least okay at squatting. Maybe grow my squat into what my legs look like. Getting back into a little bit bench pressing and getting back into some strict overhead. So I'm going to start the long slog to the 405 overhead and the 600 bench. I'm going to get that done because those are meaningful lifts to me. I just think people underestimate how long that's going to take me at this point. So I'm going to start putting in the work on those, but I'd say those are my main goals right now.
Stop being humble for a second and tell us a moment that made you feel like a god in the gym/comp.
Kirsten's deadlift yesterday.
Let's go!
When I benched 185.
There you go.
Hell yeah.
Kirsten didn't have to stop being humble.
Oh, it's when I benched and played at the school gym, probably.
Oh, true.
That was a long time ago.
In our college gym, when Kirsten got her first one-plate bench press, she went full egomaniac. a week and would just like walk into the gym and be like, I'm a god here.
So,
I don't know. I feel like I'm a very negative Nancy. I can't remember. Like, I feel like every lift I've ever done, I've been like, yeah, I probably should be able to do that already. That's like, there's people that do way more. I was pretty happy after my 8:15 because I missed it the week prior off of me being a moron and having zero deadlift technique.
Your first 800, you were...
yeah, I was pretty happy after the first 800. I was happy after my 500, but I don't know if it felt like a god quite yet. When I bench 1,000 pounds raw, I'll get back to you.
I feel like I'm try my best to be humble. Not well. When I was 17, I did a competition, and it was just like stars aligned, like way stronger than I should have been on the day. And I pulled a third attempt, and they allowed me to take a fourth attempt for Federation rules. And I walked over and said, Sam, put whatever you want on the bar and I won't miss. And I 100% believed that. So I wish I felt like that more often. With Sam, most of the time I do a lift, I'm like, well, got her done. It's more of like a relief of anxiety because I get so nervous that I'm going to miss. But whenever I'm stronger than I expect, those are really, really big ego moments. Explosive movements aside, are there any movements that are particularly bad if you AMRAP them? And which ones with particular big benefits?
Do you guys have any thoughts on this?
Deadlift AMRAP bad.
I think an SBD, if you're training for to optimize them, unless you have really, really good technique or an actual technician, I think AMRAP, your technique is going to go to shit well before you fail, and you're going to go into the realm of practicing bad movement patterns, and that is probably going to be less productive than if you had hit an easier set and then just done hard accessories. And so complex movement patterns that you're not insanely good at, that is your main priority. If you just want to do a deadlift AMRAP for fun, be my guest. But if you're trying to optimize, I don't think you should be doing frequent AMRAPs on them.
All right, and then do you guys have any emotions, good, bad, just your intuition? I'll give my brief summary at the end, but what do you guys think?
You should be going as hard as possible on tricep extensions and leg extensions. You'll never hit a true AMRAP if you're not doing too much weight.
Would you throw hamstring curls in there?
I can't, but
maybe you would get injured if you had included hamstring.
I'm not currently injured. I had been injured, but I did hurt my hamstring a while ago. Most smaller isolation movements within the realm of keeping your ROM maximal. I think you should just be trying to go absolutely all out because you're almost always going to fail before you truly reach muscular failure.
And also the systemic fatigue of a tricep press down set to failure is pretty negligible. If you guys watch all my videos, you probably heard me talk about this where it's maybe the last 2 reps of a tricep press down set are a little bit more fatiguing than they are stimulative, but that way we know exactly our proximity to failure because it's 0 RIR. We know exactly what it is. It's idiot proof. And I don't believe that it's so systemically taxing that it's not worth having the accuracy. So I think the accuracy of going to failure is worth maybe the little bit of systemic fatigue we're getting extra when it comes to more isolated lifts. Now, do you have any guesses?
I would add probably pull-ups and maybe dips. I feel like pull-ups, at least it's hard to hurt yourself. I feel like it's reasonably self-limiting. You're not gonna break yourself. And maybe dips. I think I'm smaller than you guys, so I probably would have a harder time hurting myself on dips.
AMRAP on dips fine.
Yeah.
As long as you warm up.
Yeah. And upper body, I like bench AMRAPs and stuff, but you have to be careful, what Max said,
Wait, real quick. Just usually it's going to be proportionate to how technically, once we get past those isolated lifts where we can definitely lean into AMRAPs, at least for our final set, maybe for all sets, depending on how you like to program. You could maybe do one all-out set and then sub-max back-off sets. You could do sub-max sets and then one all-out set, or you could do all-out sets and do a couple less. But then past that, the more technical the motion is, the less we're going to be relying on AMRAPs within our training. Something like a clean and jerk, you'd be a moron to train an AMRAP as a centerpiece of your training. It just doesn't make sense. If you are a relatively novice squatter, again, you're going to be drilling not the motor pattern you want for probably the last 8 reps of 10 if you're just going all out with the most weight you could do regardless. So I would say the more technically proficient you are, the more you could apply that higher intensity, lower proximity to failure strategy to bigger compound lifts. Or you could always just say, well, an AMRAP there's an invisible T there. It's a TAMRAP. It's a technical AMRAP. As many reps with the form I'm looking for as possible, and you can program off of that. As far as motions, I don't really like it on. I think Kirsten's intuition is correct. I don't really ever program deadlift AMRAPs. I don't think it makes a ton of sense from a fatigue standpoint. I would rather either be accumulating volume or be getting in some heavier touches, or a combination of the both. I don't really like AMRAPing the deadlift. I just think that the fatigue to benefits there, not great. As far as something that I think it goes well on, leg press. You're not actually probably going to reach failure, but I'm going to tell you it's an AMRAP so that you feel motivated to work really hard.
Large lads, who can consume a burger shake faster? I respectfully request burger shake race.
I suspect I would win that one. I've got more experience chugging burger shakes.
I think Sam's got a lot more experience. I think there's a solid chance Sam beats me on that. It depends on how repulsive I think it is. I've not tried because I can just eat my meals.
Yeah, Max is a normal human being that can eat his food solid always, so he doesn't have as much experience with the digging deep for the burger shakes like I do.
I think we can all agree Kirsten would take last and Ode would take first.
Yeah.
Oh, good boy.
Ode could kill a burger shake. Would you rather have to drink 5 large milkshakes or eat 100 Reese's Cups?
If I were given permission to drink 5 large milkshakes, I just would.
There is no.
But I'm lactose intolerant, so
It's
I
not
can't
even
do
an.
that.
It's not even an either.
Kirsten
or.
always wants to drink 5 large milkshakes.
Just any day, I would love to just go buy 5 large milkshakes.
All right, Max, which one are you picking?
I assume there's like some time constraint to this, and I don't like Reese's Cups, but I think that is so much less food than 5 large milkshakes. I think 5 large milkshakes would really make me sick.
Both of those are going to make me die, so I feel like I could get the 5 milkshakes done out of the way quicker, throw it up, and move on with my day.
Just yarp in the parking lot. If you had to trade any muscle with each other, what would they be? Like trading dual monster cards that have to swap.
So Max and I discussed this ahead of time, and it depends if you mean strength-wise or just like hypertrophy-wise. Because if it's hypertrophy-wise, I would take Max's triceps because they're giant and they're not that strong.
And if we're saying strength-wise, I'm taking Sam's chest or triceps.
Yeah, and in Kirsten's case, I would take anything. Kirsten has, I would say, very above average hypertrophy-specific genetics for a woman. Like, she started going to the gym with me when we were in college and did like 1 set of face pulls once a week, would cry and go home, and she like legit got traps in like a matter of weeks. And then she started eating protein twice a day rather than just living off of onion rings, and then like had capped delts out of nowhere. So I suspect that if Kirsten had been like following a rigorous bodybuilding and nutrition regimen, she'd probably look like Ronnie Coleman by now. So I'll take any body part.
If you're taking a strength one from me, what are you picking?
Adductors. Max is the strongest adductors on planet fucking Earth.
It's like 2/3 of my leg is adductor, and 100% of my arm is tricep. How many calories do you guys eat in a day individually?
Do you have a guess?
No, I track macros. I've actually accidentally lost weight focusing on eating clean, whole foods and getting a protein macro in. So
when she says she tracked macros, she means
I mean
macro.
protein. I only track my protein macro, and I have like, I don't know, what would you guess?
2,300 to 2,400, I would guess.
Yeah, so.
I've been a little, like, just shy or just over 5K lately. I bumped my calories a bit, and it didn't work. I lost weight. So I've been in a hypertrophy phase, so like my total workload is up a lot. But that was a real bummer to up my food and lose weight.
Rant time. If any of you are skinny and you're going to tell me you eat 5K cal every day, you either are really bad at math or you're lying. Oh my fucking God, I'm getting tired of this. People ask, they're like, how many calories do you eat? I'm like, about 5K. And they're like, that's it? That's what I eat. The fuck you don't.
Talk about
Holy
the
shit.
eating.
Usually what will happen is someone will track their food for one day, and because they're tracking, they eat as much as possible that day. I have no doubt that you hit 5K that day, but you're not accounting for the 3 days after where you slacked off and ate 2K, so your average is actually like 3K tops. You can't just base it off of the day where you ate the most. You have to actually be realistic and drag down that average based on the number of days that you're not eating as much as you know you should. The number of people that are like, no, I'm eating 4.5K, but I'm $160 and I can't gain weight. If you are super physically active, that is possible. There are people that are like that, and you're statistically probably not one of them. Really grinds my gears, and people really inflate their calories, even people that I think should know better, because so many people misreport their calories. They're like, well, I eat a lot of food. I feel like I'm eating all the time. If I tell people 3K, they won't understand that it's a lot of food. I need to say 4K so people understand that I'm eating a lot. And it's like, no, 4K isn't like this. Isn't like a descriptor. It's not. It doesn't mean a lot. It's a number of calories that you either did or didn't eat, and you're lying. Or people be like, 4K doesn't like convey how hard I'm working. I'm just gonna tell people 5K. You're not eating 5K. That's why I've got a lot of respect when I talk to people and they give me a number that absolutely sounds correct. I'm like, hey, you actually counted the number. I love you. Instead of just guessing and pretending you track your calories, like some guy will be like, yeah, no, I'm struggling to eat all my food at 32K. Or 3.2. Yeah, 32K.
I get that number at the gym all the time.
Yeah, 3.2K. Then I'm struggling to get that all down. I'm like, in clean food, that's a lot of food. I believe you. You know what I mean?
People do not understand how much like a 5K clean is.
Yeah.
People telling me they eat 5K clean is like, I don't think you do. I don't believe you.
Yeah, it's like I work really hard to eat about 5K clean, eating 6 times a day. And it's like, I'm not a big eater. Max could go above that if he really felt like it or needed to. But it's like, I have to work pretty hard to do that, and I'm a pretty large guy. This is my rant aside. I hope I don't sound like I'm attacking any of you, but it grinds my gears when someone tells me they're eating 6K clean every day.
Average over the week.
And they're not half their size. If you've done it once, that's pretty good. Good job. That's not what you eat, though.
Alrighty. Can you name your favorite PlayStation/Xbox games? Kirsten, favorite video game. Does not have to be those consoles.
Zelda. Breath of the Wild.
You're lying. You say it's not
It's
Sims.
the block game. Sam, favorite game.
Wait, is that your favorite?
Yeah, I grew up playing Sims, but I don't think I'd like it now. So I like. I also grew up playing Halo on the Xbox. That was like a childhood game, but I played Breath of the Wild most recently.
Kirsten's lying. If she had Sims again, she wouldn't leave her room for 1 month. My favorite games. It says specifically Xbox.
Yeah, PlayStation/Xbox games.
I really liked Witcher 3. What else did I really like? I really liked Red Dead Redemption. Not like 2. Not a very hot take. It was a game of the year. I've done 2 game of the years. Great.
I got stuck on that game like an hour into playing, and then I had to stop because I couldn't get past one part.
Do I have any like?
Pokemon games.
It's not on the Xbox or the PS4.
It's not?
No. All right, Max, go.
Skyrim. It's become a curse on my life. I comfortably have my 10,000 hours in Skyrim. I just play it. Usually about once a month I'll go through and beat the game in its entirety. I think that's the end of the question. How long... Also, thank you. How long it takes you to now make a new PR?
That's a great question. It depends. We probably aim for about 10 weeks of training for 5 pounds. That's kind of the rate that Max and I are targeting.
I shoot for 11 pounds every single time.
And he falls short all the time.
No,
let's be clear.
No. I think I miss, I have bad blocks more often because I shoot for 11 pounds every single time.
But yeah, our actual targeted rate of progression at this point is about 5 pounds for about 10 weeks of training. For Kirsten, we look for about, if things are going well, about 10 pounds per 10 weeks of training. It also depends, if you're at this peak of motivation, your life stresses are low, and you're like, I'm gonna go all in this training cycle, it's not unreasonable to say instead of 5, I'm going for 10 or 15. It kind of depends on context, or if last block went bad, you might be overdue for a good block, so you might be able to go above that 5. There's lots of things that might kind of throw that off, but as a general rule of thumb at this point, if it's a lift we've been training for a while, it'll be 5. If it's something new, a lot, right? If it's like, okay, well, I'm going to start doing, if Max were to start doing high bar squats, right? We could test a Max right now. I would expect that Max to go up about 50 pounds in one training cycle because he's got all of this generalized strength from low bar, and he's just going to neurally adapt and get the technique figured out in a new motion. But assuming it's not novel, 5 pounds.
Kirsten?
Oh, I think Sam said.
Yeah, I said
like
we
10
aim for
pounds.
about 10.
Yeah.
How much do you value unilateral leg work? Is it something you'd only need for a few sets once a week, or would you do it more or less frequently?
A few sets once a week. Is that what I said?
You'd only need a few sets once a week, or would you do it more / less frequently?
For most people, I think a few sets once a week is going to be good. I think that if you perceive that there's an issue there, either with an imbalance or with like maybe you're less efficient at using one leg, or maybe you feel that your hip stability within your squat, like your adductor and glute strength is a deficit, maybe we could target all of our accessory squat volume to be unilateral for a while. So instead of leg press, we do single leg press. Instead of a belt squat, we do a split squat, that kind of thing. And we do all of our stuff unilateral until we feel like that kind of deficit has gone away. And if you don't perceive there to be a deficit, 2 to 3 to 4 sets once a week will probably be enough to kind of preserve that sense of evenness that you've built up. Some people go none. I don't think we have any in Max's program right now, and I don't think that's causing any issues. But I do think for most people, kind of having a couple sets every week just to kind of keep that at bay is a good idea.
Large Lads Cookbook needed. That would be a one-page cookbook in which I put beef in a wok and then I stir it. And then I put it in a salad bowl.
I'll probably make a video just like interviewing Max while he cooks his beef. So you guys can ask him any like training related questions and we'll just do it while Max makes his beef. So that way it's a dual purpose, how to meal prep with Max.
Large Lads Part 5 is going to be the beef cooking video. What are the logging apps you use, if any? I don't use any for dieting because I eat the same thing every day. And we log all of our training in Google Sheets.
I use a notebook. I don't use Google Sheets.
You don't have your own sheet?
No. That's crazy. No, I just use a physical notebook. You don't use it?
I've used my plate in the past in my fitness pal. I think there's a lot of good apps out there. I like the ones that you can scan the label on stuff. But now that I eat beef and rice, you can just Google how many grams of protein per blank amount of ounces of cooked beef, and then you know what protein it is. So I don't think I need to track it beyond that. You just put it in your phone calculator.
If you, Sam, had stuck with boxing instead of strength sports, how long do you think you have continued, / to how high of a level do you think you could have gone? Would you have encouraged Max to do boxing when he was younger? Would he have had any aptitude for it?
Well, if I had stuck with it, I'd probably still be doing it because I need to be doing something. I'm a bit of a head case, and if I don't train for something every day, I don't really have a purpose in my life, right? So it's like, whether that be strongman or general strength training or boxing, I kind of enjoy them all. If that's what I was doing, I'd be doing that probably until the day I die. And I like to think that just that level of sticking with it and doing it every day, I like to work. I like to do work. So I like to think that would pay off in at least a moderately high level, especially after having done it. Because I started when I was like 9 or 10. So we'd be 14 years deep by now. I would hope I would actually at least be decent at it. Max actually did try boxing a bit when he was younger. First, not so seriously, then slightly more seriously. And Max has a cool little story to tell you about him harassing adults. But I think Max, again, same thing. Max is now, not then, like a bit of a workhorse. Like he'll do the daily work, whatever is assigned. I think that if he was under the tutelage of a good coach and they just sent him home with his homework of, you've got this many miles of road work to get done every week. Here's the nutrition I expect you to do. This is the drilling I expect you to do. We spar Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Max will do the work. Max is an athletic and big guy, especially athletic for someone that size. And if you look at heavyweights on the local level, I'm not convinced Max couldn't do okay right now. Just because the level of athleticism at heavyweight is so few and far between. Story time.
We actually talked about this yesterday. As I've grown older, I realized I put a lot of people in a very awkward situation. Because I was like 12 or 13 when I started, I picked up boxing again and was like, oh, I'll try and get better at this. And so this was when Sam was going to a different boxing gym, I think, or was that when you were in college? I don't know.
I was in college by then.
Yeah. So I was I was like a larger kid because I had been lifting weights, and so I was like, oh, I'll just go box 2 or 3 times a week. And I think I was probably 200 pounds or slightly lighter, like 180. And I was pretty tall, and they would have me spar, and I would just go ham. I would just try and injure my opponent. I was going for a KO. And I realized now, looking back, that there were a bunch of adult men who had to get into a ring with a 12-year-old and who was large enough to hurt them, and so they couldn't be like, oh, take it easy, I'm working with this kid because he's trying to hurt you, so you have to hit him hard. And I just perceived it as like, we're equals and we're going to war. But it's just like awkward to have this person beat up a tween and then feel bad about it.
Well, and also to make it one step worse, Max is a bleeder. Max's nose will bleed from a hard wind, and he also tends to get a bit teary-eyed. So I don't know. I feel really bad for those adults because Max charges across the ring, attempting to take their head off during light sparring.
Successfully.
Not so successfully. They punch him. Now he is a crying, bloody mess who's still trying to assault them, but is a 12-year-old. Not a good position to be in.
I'd have to warn them every time. I'm like, hey, I'm going to bleed a lot, so get ready. And I would soak the ring. They'd pop me in the nose, and it would just start gushing, and it wouldn't stop for like the full 2 minutes. So that's very funny to look back on. I think my work ethic has kind of developed through powerlifting, and so if I just continued boxing and not taking it seriously, I would have been terrible. Hopefully, I would have matured as a person and taken it more seriously, but at the rate I was going, I probably wouldn't have been very good. All right, we're getting to the end. Thoughts on using horse joint supplements? I saw a video by Freaky D saying he used these and saying they're 50 cents a serving.
I've been meaning to give this a try. I saw Paris linked me the Freaky D mythical ActiFlex horse joint supplement, and I kind of want to take it, even if I don't think it does anything. Like when I'm going to keep taking it so I can say that I take horse joint supplement because that goes hard. I'm going to start prescribing this for all of my athletes. That way I've got this reputation like, oh yeah, everybody Sam coaches takes literal horse powder. I like that. So I'm going to give it a try. I'll give you guys a review on the channel. Final question.
Thoughts on breaking at the hips for squat?
Depends.
Good.
Some people it's good. Some people it's a bad idea. Ultimately, you should probably be breaking at the knees and the hips at the same time. It should be visually probably the same time if you're doing a raw squat. Some people will think about breaking at the hips first if they feel that they're over breaking at the knees to try to correct that out. But if you watch it and you didn't tell them your cue ahead of time, you'd probably just say they still break at the same time. I've had to do that in the past where I started thinking about deliberately breaking with the hips because I would always be slightly over my forefoot and I would underutilize the hips, overutilize the knee joint. So it can be a way to correct that. But for most people, we're always trying to strike a balance between using the knee and the hip joint together in conjunction, right? So it's like if you're who's just good morninging all your squats, I might even tell you to break at your knee first because you need to use that shit. So not really a one-size-fits-all answer there. This has been Large Lads 4.
Sounds right,
4 or 5. Thank you guys for watching. We'll probably do another one of these like next week.